Hey you guys, I figured I'd make hopefully a short and to the point video today with some valuable nuggets of information. Not a glamorous video in any kind of way. I'm just a junk man in a junkyard who happens to have goats to mow the lawn in between all the junk so that I don't have 6-foot high briars. And I've never met a lawnmower that they haven't made a Roomba that clones itself, even though they do now make mowers that go and do the job for you without you working. You got to pay for that, and then it breaks and you got to maintain it. Goats, once you buy them, they duplicate on their own. They give you a brand new Roomba or 2 or 3 or 4 or 10, once a year, sometimes twice a year if you're managing well. So just a very basic introductory thought to livestock. First of all, the business of livestock is not in selling meat to producers. That you don't have to develop that business. What you're really doing is selling sunshine and rain, because the resource that you have to have is the land. So I also raise pigs. Let me tell you, I'm losing my butt on pigs because my land is not producing anything that those pigs really eat. I mean, I don't have enough land for the amount that pigs eat, and this is this time of year where the land produces nothing, so I have to buy hay. Underneath this tarp is a round bale. You can see a lump of a round bale. It's $40 for 1,200 pounds, half a ton. So $80 a ton is about the rate in my area for hay. Now I have 5 goats. One of them is underneath there eating right now, but this is actually where they live. When I first started with goats, now goats do not like being wet. I know I'm already sidetracking. One thing you ought to know about goats is they're miserable when they're wet, and especially when they're cold and wet. They're very stressed. Stress produces miscarriages and problems. A stressed animal wants to escape its enclosure. An animal that's at peace and at ease wants to come home and get back in its enclosure. Okay, so stress is the enemy of successful animal producing. I used to think, well, you had to have barns, but God didn't create these animals to live in barns, but he did create them with the brains to go find their own shelter. I used to try to produce shelter, like make it out of lumber, and I've made a few different types of sleds where I tow them around, because I'll set the goats up in one area and keep them there until they eat everything down in that area, then I'll move them on. So I had to have portable housing. Well, portable housing is not that simple, and it's not that cheap. And it's simple when you got 2 or 3 or maybe 4 or 5. When you start getting 10 or 20 goats, how do you deal with portable housing for all of them? It's not that simple. So in the search for simpler ways, cheaper ways to feed and things like this, now I have produced my own hay. I have produced my own feed crops just to put a dollar value or a time, just to get an emotional attachment to the amount of labor it takes to make a unit of feed, a day's worth of feed. Holy crap, is it a lot of effort. So that round bale in there is the best deal on the face of the earth for me. I go, it takes 10 minutes to plop on my truck. It takes me 10 minutes to drop it off. How do you keep the round bale from getting soaked and moldy? You put a tarp on it. Well, of course, the tarp's going to blow off and all these things. Then you got the animals, they're going to waste. Now, why are they going to waste? And this is what my introductory thought, what I didn't get out so far, but I'm going to get out right now. Animals waste when there's a sensation of abundance. They get selective, choosy, and whiny when they have abundance. Just like spoiled kids, spoiled brat children. Oh, I don't like that old video game because I get new ones from grandma all the time. Get me new. Now, a poor kid doesn't whine. A hungry animal doesn't whine. It eats. When it sees food and it's hungry, meaning there's a scarcity, there's more animals than there is food, they don't complain. They just put their heads down and eat as fast as they can because there's a competition. You don't see anything green out there right now. So you put 10 animals out here, they're not going to sit there and whine. They're going to be just ravaging through the leaves looking for an acorn, looking for a green blade of grass. And when they run out, they will eventually whine because there's just nothing left. But if you put a round bale in the middle of this area, all of a sudden they say, there's enough food here for all of us for eternity. Let's just start picking through the pile and scattering it everywhere. And just looking for the choicest stuff to eat. And that's what they'll do. They'll waste. So this bale, they'll pull it all down. They'll pick through it. They'll be selective, and they'll drag through it. It's just like a kid at a buffet. They go straight for the ice cream platter. They don't eat the broccoli, okay? So that's what animals do with abundance, is they waste. And that waste is bothersome if you're the person who's footing the bill. So how do I deal with that? I let the waste be bedding. okay? The animal laying on the ground in the water is going to freeze. It's going to be stressed, in the wintertime. It's going to have a harder life. But if there's 3 inches of wasted hay, that animal's insulated. It's not so wet. It's not so cold. It's not using up its energy stores to maintain its body temperature. It's not so miserable. It's not so stressed. So I let them have this little enclosure that gets them out of the wind. It's just a ratchet strap and a tarp. That's all it is. Some step-in poles and some firewood chunks to hold it down. As you can see, the tarp's as holy as can be. So it's good for nothing except this. And yeah, of course, rain drips through it, but if you got enough pitch in multi-dimensions, for the most part, the rain runs off and there's just a drip here or there. The animal's got a good coat. They can take a couple drops. But the wind is off of them. The snow is off of them. And the driving rain is off of them. So that's the big thing. Now, the waste, what I do basically, so these animals out here, these are the males. I got 3 males that I keep out in this pen. And they're fenced away from the females who are about to deliver any day. Now, I keep those females in a shed, like an airtight shed, so that if they do deliver a brand new wet, cold baby in the middle of the night, that baby ideally does not freeze to death from a draft blowing across it. And also, my dogs don't get to it. But what I do is I come in on a daily basis. It only takes me a minute. I bring the wheelbarrow. I rake up what they've wasted before they pee all over it and trample it and poop on it and all that. I rake that up and I fill a wheelbarrow every day and I bring it and I put it into that shed that the 2 females are in. Now, the females have a mentality of not wasting a bit because they're in a tiny enclosure. They eat everything that they have every day and they compete. They wrestle down to the last straw. So I get no waste. I get maximum usage out of all of this hay. So the best stuff they feed on. This guy is rubbing me to death here. Come on, Pop. Quit. The choicest, tastiest victuals they feed on. And they're happy. They're not stressed because they have shelter, they have bedding, they have food. So these animals are quiet out here. They're content. They're happy. They don't actually even leave this part of this corner of this pen. It's about an acre, and they don't even hardly ever move from this spot anymore. Now that waste goes in with the females. The females eat what they want, and what they waste becomes their bedding. And it's important that the bedding continually gets renewed so that they're not laying in their own crap and not soaking wet with pee all the time. And it helps, insulate them from the cold of the frozen ground on the cold nights. And it works really well. And this has been the most economical, cheapest thing that I've ever done. It's a sweatshirt day today, but I'm in this little tent with a t-shirt on, and it's hot in here. Like, it's warm. That's the south-facing side, which I've got taller so that this collects more of the southern warmth, and I've got it sloped tight to the back on the north side because what's going to come from the north is really just cold wind, and it's shady to the north and it's sunny to the south, so it just makes sense. And this is the western wall, which your sun sets on here, so this really gets a natural solar warming effect, and it actually kind of stays in here pretty well. If you come in the evening, it feels pretty warm in here between the body heat and the day of solar heating. Now when it's time to move this section on, what's down here for grass or for wasted hay, it creates a mulch and it leaves behind seed, free hay seed of good native adapted species, cold season grasses. I know the guy I buy my hay from. And that's going to reseed this area, which, I came into this area with a dozer and I cleared out the underbrush and I just kept a few of the dominant oak trees so that, let's walk out there and look at that. When I cleared, I kept a few of the mass-bearing oaks so that they would drop acorns, because pigs and goats feed on acorns like crazy. Acorns are full of fats and minerals and trace elements that are really, really critical for developing a fetus and having a live birth come spring or whenever the right time is. Now, when you come in with a dozer and you take out the understory, which was all just rubbish, hey, don't wreck that, you dummy. When you do that, you strip the soil and you leave it bare so that it wants to grow back something for a cover, or it's going to erode. The easiest thing to do is just scatter your wasted hay around. Now, next time I do this, I'll pick a different spot. I'll do the same idea, but I'll pick a different spot. And in time, this will turn into a silvopasture on its own. So, cliff notes: ratchet strap, tarp, round bale, cover you for the winter. Best way that I've figured to do it so far. I'm not going to build them any barns because they're going to keep moving. I go back a quarter mile, and I'm not going to set up fencing where they can go graze down there and then come back to the barn, and I'm not going to take the time to move them every day and bring water to them and all these things. It's too much effort. So there's not much money in livestock unless you're JB Hunt. Not JB Hunt. Tyson. JBS. That's who I was thinking of. JBS. You know, if you're JBS or Tyson or Cargill, yeah, there's billions of dollars in livestock. But for the small producer with a few acres and a backyard herd, there's almost guaranteed no money in this unless you're extremely frugal. So homesteading, the concept of homesteading, you don't learn how to do it until you run out of money. That is like the definition of homesteading. I've got my home, I've got my land, I've got my tools, I've got my time. I don't have any money. How can I make this work? You'll learn how to homestead when the money runs out. So don't be scared of that. Use it as a creative way to find solutions to simple problems. Right, big boy? He's got a good thick coat on him. Look at that. Look at that. 4 or 5 inches long. That's why I kept you. So you'd give them that coat of yours. What a good boy. What a good boy you are.